Welcome. For this video, we will be discussing emotional impact. What is it? Emotional impact is the way that people, places, things, situations, and energies affect our emotional body. As humans, we have different layers of our body, mind, heart, and soul. And part of that is that we feel emotions. Emotions are not something physically tangible, but they affect our physical reality, our brain chemistry, our mental health, and overall, the mood that we have, which influences how we think, how we communicate, how we behave, and the reflection that we get back from the universe. In a universe based on the law of attraction or the law of mirroring, where what we focus on is what increases in manifestation, emotional impact is actually super important. Our nervous system is either regulated or dysregulated, and different experiences can cause us to go into sympathetic, like fight or flight, or parasympathetic, such as rest and digest. And that can affect how we operate throughout the world. Emotional impact happens to us all of the time, whether or not we're aware of it. When we're asleep, when we're awake, based on the senses, such as touch, taste, smell, hearing, and sight. The things that we perceive affect our perception of reality, which then affects what we experience, and then that experience continues to shape perception unless we break that feedback loop. Our perception also can change experiences, yet a lot of emotional impact happens by default because we live in a world where we can't control everything. There are people and places and things and situations constantly in flux, and impermanence is another factor where nothing is necessarily the same. Things are constantly changing and evolving. So we may respond or react differently to different stimuli and experiences based on variables such as how much sleep we've gotten, how well we've eaten, how hydrated we are, how deep we're breathing in through our nose and expanding our diaphragms and getting enough oxygen into our blood. Things like triggers from traumas that we may have experienced, or memories of relationships. Could even be the relationship dynamics that we currently have with our friends, our family, our partner, or even with ourselves. And our beliefs, whether they're conscious or subconscious or unconscious, that have been formed from the things that we have lived through. All of these things impact us emotionally. Now, we can deny that that's the truth, but that doesn't mean that the impact isn't there. Who might be impacting us in our lives? Well, it can be anybody. It can even be strangers on the bus or in traffic. It can be employers or clients. It can honestly be animals or the weather. And it may even be astrology or universal energies. It can be what some people perceive as God or the universe or just nature doing its thing. Yet it can also be how we are deciding moment to moment, even if we're not realizing it. We impact our own emotions, which then impacts others, and others then impact us, just as they impact themselves. Now, we can't control what other people say or do or don't say or do, just like we can't control whether there's a natural disaster or if something goes haywire, like technology or appliances. Yet we are able to at least respond more effectively if we choose to be aware of the impact that things are having on us or not having on us that we would like them to have. So, where does this happen? Where's emotional impact? It can be in the body, right? The cells and the tissues store memory and trauma. They also express energy because we're made of water. So as Dr. Emoto's water experience showed, different energies, whether positive or negative, can affect the formation of particle structure, such as in the study of cymatics. And it can also occur in our mind, in our heart, in our gut, in our intuition, in our spirit, in our essence, and even in our dream world. When does this happen? Well, emotional impact is happening oftentimes when we're more exposed to different stimuli. And when there is a higher level of exposure to certain things that may be either joyful and positive and inducing feelings of happiness or abundance and gratitude, or the opposite end, where there is an intense negative experience or perception of a negative experience, person or place or whatever it might be. So it's happening all the time, whether or not we realize, but there's times where it's clearly more evident that it's occurring. And it can feel a little confusing at times when we're not aware of what is impacting us emotionally, because we don't always pause. To understand how we're being emotionally impacted, we actually need that space to breathe, to think, to feel. So if we're always in go mode, if we're always distracted, if we're always listening to things and never giving us the silence that we deserve and are worthy of, then it's really hard to tune in and listen to what our emotions and our emotional body is telling us. Most people are just on autopilot. Emotional impact happens to them and they just are tuned out. They're not attuned, they're desensitized, and they go through the days where this momentum adds up, and it's usually not positive. It can be where just a bunch of good things happen and maybe you're not paying attention and you're like, why do I feel so good? Yet oftentimes it is little upsets and conflicts where somebody rubs you the wrong way, they say or do something that irritates you, and you might just sweep it under the rug because you need to focus. There's other priorities than emotions, right? Especially for men or boys in a patriarchal society with toxic masculinity, we've been taught, don't cry, emotions are weakness. When in fact, the opposite is true when it comes to intelligence and maturity. Emotions are actually guidance. Just like pain, that contrast is facilitating and teaching us awareness so that we can go in the direction of what feels good. Now, I'm not saying to just chase pleasure and dopamine and cheap thrills just because it feels comfortable and good. The pain and pleasure cycle of duality and trying to escape what we don't want and don't want to feel isn't necessarily a recipe for true happiness, because as the Buddha taught, attachment is the root of all suffering. So if we cling to only positive experiences that impact us positively, we don't really experience the fullness of life, and that's not true long-lasting happiness. It's only impermanent temporary bliss that's not truly fulfilling on a spiritual level and on an emotional level that is consistent. It's sporadic, it's intermittent, it's kind of all over the place. And the more that we desire and crave these positive impacts only, then we can live in a state of delusion and selective identification, and ultimately toxic positivity, where we shame our negative emotions or others and experiences that are negative, or we just gaslight and deflect the negative impact by pretending everything's just great all the time. Let's just be happy and grateful. Well, that's not authentic. So if we'd like to live an authentic life, we must pay attention to what is negatively impacting us and take responsibility for our part in that, or how we're allowing that, how we may be unaware of that, or how we may be impacting others in ways that we may or may not be aware of. When we tune in, we pause and we listen, we can actually understand, not to respond, not to react, but to take in that data, to take in that guidance, that information, and then use it like a compass to direct our paths toward what feels good. Not from a place of avoidance of what doesn't feel good, not from a place of just trying to feel good all the time, but because of benevolence, because positivity brings wellness and joy, and it feels good. And who doesn't like to feel good? Smiling, being happy, breathing deep, enjoying quality of life, those are all great things. Everybody loves positive impacts. It's just everything needs to be in moderation, because if you try too hard to positively impact yourself and others, it starts to be fake, it starts to be imbalanced, and it starts to kind of draw into a territory where it feels forced. And when other people do that, it can feel kind of cringe, like they're just too happy, they're not real, and they're trying too hard, and it's a lot. It can almost be off-putting if they're doing so much to appear positive. It starts to actually negatively impact others because it's just overwhelming. It's not really in alignment. It starts to become resistance. So why do things emotionally impact us? Well, emotions are energy. They're energy in motion, emotion. And emotion is something like a vibration. Everything is energy and vibration. So our emotions, our mood, our neurochemistry are all influenced by our environments. And our environments are actually influenced by our emotions, just as our manifestations are. When we ask God or the universe or source, whatever you want to call it, or even we just think something or we write it down, if we say affirmations or prayers or wishes, but we don't really feel that energy and belief, it doesn't really matter how much we say it. Then again, it doesn't really matter unless we do it either. But finding that congruency between emotional impact and action is really important, because it doesn't really matter how good you feel if you're not taking the action that's necessary, just as it's not really that important what you do if you keep struggling, working so hard, but you don't feel good about it, or you don't feel in alignment when you do it. That's where we can work smarter and harder, or work smarter, not harder. And ultimately, when we work harder, we're doing it in a smarter way because we're emotionally aligning with the best outcome, while also releasing the expectations by just positively impacting ourselves and others and allowing life to positively impact us. It is really important to notice when something is negatively emotionally impacting us, because that affects our everyday life. It affects our sleep, our health, our ability to move and be productive. It affects our energy levels. Our emotional impact from others and from ourselves and from the world affects our relationships. And our relationships are emotionally impacted by that. Our finances, our career, our ability to perform and do what we're meant to is all correlated to how we are emotionally impacted. And so we can tune into how we feel and honor our true healthy boundaries by being aware of what is emotionally impacting us in what way. And whichever way that may be, we can then adjust accordingly. So it can be fun and kind of like a game rather than a struggle, where we don't label it as positive or negative just to say, oh, this is bad or this is good. We don't shame one or just celebrate the other. We utilize it as a practical application to integrate experiences, kind of like an aha. Oh, okay, like a light bulb goes off and you start to put two and two together. Oh, I see why I reacted this way because I was going through this, or I can see why this relationship went this way because of how I impacted the other person or how they impacted me, or I see how I haven't been doing what I'd like to be doing because of these influences on me from other people that I've been around or interacting with, or the places that I've been. And so when we are also aware of like what really feels good, like, oh, I like smelling these flowers, or I like seeing this color because it like brings me these different emotions, or I like this texture and I like how it feels on me, or I just like the sound of this specific music, or I really don't like this harsh music. Ooh, I really like when I get sunshine, or I really don't feel positive and I feel kind of depressed when it's raining and I'm closing the blinds. Or I feel really positive when I wake up early and get up and move and drink tea. Otherwise, I don't really feel that good when I sleep in and oversleep and I go to sleep late and I game or watch movies too late and I see blue screens and blue light. So those are just some examples. Just like, wow, that person's energy feels toxic to me, or the way they're communicating feels not okay. Or wow, I feel so in love or just ecstatic being around this other individual. And oh, I love cats, they're so cute. Or oh, dogs are so annoying, they bark so much. So these pieces of information are crucial to living a conscious life full of awareness and for living a happy life. It seems so simple, yet it's not, because we live in what some people call the emotional dark age, where emotions are not okay. We're told to just be like robots, to think, say, and do what we're told, to live in according to this weird paradigm that we've been conditioned into, and also in accordance with these man-made principles that don't necessarily exist in the natural world until humans decided different things. And so when we can just scratch all that for a second and be like, well, what do I actually feel? How does this affect me? How does this influence me to feel? Not necessarily how does this make me feel, how do I feel about it? And so instead of saying this makes me feel this way, which gives away a lot of power, we can say, well, I feel this way about this thing. And so when we do that, we're able to take the power back into our hands and utilize that to shift our perception, to shift our variables, circumstances, conditions, and environment to reflect and mirror the energies that we'd like to experience. Then the law of attraction can bring us more and more of what we'd like. This is why gratitude is so powerful, because when we feel grateful, we attract more things to be grateful for us. Just as how complaining can be so negatively impactful against our positive emotions, and we can feel so drained when we hear somebody else complaining, or when we complain, or feel like hopeless with the world. So there's a reason why even people in the worst situations that have been negatively impacted and their emotions aren't feeling the best, they choose to say, think, and do different things that are positive, that impact others in a positive way, which through mirror neurons reflects back, and through entrainment and through the law of attraction in the universe and through karma gives them goodness back, so then they can shift that energy and feel more positive. Just as some people might have everything and all the money and stuff in the world, but they just might have a negative attitude, and so they seem to always attract bad luck or people that piss them off and situations that go awry, no matter how much success they have. Emotional impact is crucial to regulating our nervous system, because we can downshift from being overwhelmed, and we can influence ourselves in ways that are calming, such as aromatherapy, or crystals, or a bath, or a walk in nature, maybe some birds chirping, some flowing water sounds, whatever it may be for you. So I hope you take the time to listen to your emotions. That way other people can't gaslight you and say, oh, that didn't happen, because you're no longer debating with people whether or not things happened. You're acknowledging the impact that it's had on you. So whether people intend to cause harm or not, or whether you did to others, the impact is there nonetheless. When we're aware of and honest, authentic about the feedback loop, we can break those feedback loops and start new cycles and chapters and patterns, so we're not repeating karmic density and causing unnecessary suffering to ourselves and others. This is why emotional impact is so important, because it's like the key to the lock of being emotionally liberated and sovereign, free, and being the director of our reality and script, rather than letting the script direct and narrate our lives. I hope that you choose to understand the emotional impact that everything is having on you, and from that empowered place, choose again and again to do what feels good to you, and surround yourself with the reality, environment, people, places, things that influence you in a positive way, so that you manifest the best abundance moving forward. I wish you the best. Thank you.